Welcome to the Empowered Healers podcast with Songbird Grandmother, episode 8. Today, we're going to talk about coming home. So, throughout my time doing this work and meeting with thousands of people from all over the world, something that has emerged over and over again, a question that people have had on their spiritual journey is, how do I know I'm on the right? So when you're following a mainstream religion, most people don't ask that question because they will identify themselves as that religious sect. For instance, if you're a Christian, I rarely hear Christians say, is Christianity my right path? Unless they're contemplating leaving or they're going through some kind of evolution on their spiritual journey. But for the most part, when people are part of certain religious groups, they're probably born into it or came to it at some point in their life, and that's the path. But when you're on a spiritual path, you can study many religions, you can study many texts, you can study with many gurus. There's so many teachers, especially in this modern day. We have the New Age movement, which takes bits and pieces from all over the world and somehow puts them together. You have so many different types of spirituality, from witchcraft to sorcery to shamanism to Hinduism, on and on and on and on, and bits and pieces of everything, right? And so it's very easy to get confused, to get lost, to not know what exactly it is that you're, following, or if it's right for you. And sometimes what will happen is you will go down a certain path and there'll be elements of it that feel really good. And then there'll be elements of it that won't feel right. And that's when I say, there's something not quite clicking. So, for example, when I first began on my spiritual path, I was going to different metaphysical stores, different places, and I was really drawn to more like pagan, or even what you would call Wicca, because here in Colorado, that was primarily what there was in these stores, books on herbalism and spells and oils and candles. And I was always drawn to those elements. But every time I would go into these stores, I would just get this incredible headache. I would walk in and just that energy was just like, whew, and I didn't know what it was because I was still very new on my path. And I remember being like, wow, I don't know what it is, but every time I step into those stores, it's like this incredible headache. And it was so painful. And then the second I'd walk out, it would just completely go away. So I knew it was connected to whatever that energy, that vibe was. And what I soon recognized after I met my first teacher was that I was very much drawn to the earth-based elements, but it was the intention or the energy behind what it was doing that I wasn't vibing with. My spirits were not vibing with those spirits. And that happens. And so when I walked onto my shamanic medicine path, I was going back to my ancestors. And that's when I found home. And that's what I always remind people if they're asking the question, what is my spiritual path? Am I on the right path? How do I know I'm on the right path? Years ago, I had a ceremony in Las Vegas, and one of the women who showed up, she started crying in the middle of the ceremony. And I asked her why she was crying. And she said, everything you're saying is where I first began. I first began with the peace pipe. I first began with the indigenous ways. I first began my journey into this path as a healer, learning the indigenous ways. And she said throughout her journey, she spent the last 30 years going from this modality to that modality to this modality, to be so confused And when she came back and she came to my ceremony, it was like going home. She said, "This is where I first began. I don't know how I got so off my path." And it was a returning back to her ways, back to what she wanted in her life. And I always remembered that because I thought that was so powerful, because I have seen that over and over and over and over again in so many different ways and shapes. And some people will have the realization, and some people will take many, many more years to get to that revelation, because they're so stuck in both the curiosity, the seeking, and it becomes almost like an addiction, because when you just go from path to path to path to path, you're always searching but never finding. And I remember when I first walked into my first teacher's home and I was looking around at her apartment, and I just felt this overwhelming energy of, oh, this feels so good. It feels so homey and like a home that I had been yearning for. And there's nothing extraordinary about the place. There were a lot of plants around. I mean, it was pretty ordinary. And then she moved into the mountains, and oh, it was incredible when she moved up into the mountains, her home, because that's where you really felt the power of the spirit world. And then the journey just got deeper and deeper. And eventually you go from opening the door to the inner world to living, where there is no difference between your inner and outer worlds, and it becomes transcendent. And there's always more challenges, always more obstacles, always more lessons, but they're profound blessings, because every time you pass into a new doorway of a spirit world, you come home. You come home to yourself, you come home to those around you, you come home to the environment, you come home to who you are. And you no longer live from the outside in, you live from the inside out. And a lot of those paths, especially the ones like I was talking about, where it's manipulation, where it's more about how to use the spirit world to get what I want in maybe not so ethical ways. And spirit has a way of weeding that out. If that's for you, that's for you. Some people really have no ethical bounds, and that's going to be their path, because it's all about me. It's all about what I want. It's all about how can I obtain and get more. And in shamanism, for sure, you can get what you want, for sure. But it has to be in alignment with who you are and your destiny, because not everybody has that, let's say, karma to be very rich. Not everybody has that. Most people obviously don't have that, because if they did, it would just be common for everybody to be millionaires and billionaires. But in the reality of the world, most people have a common destiny, which doesn't mean it's boring or, you know, mundane. But most people just have a common life, which means that you're living the life of the masses. You're living the life that you chose to live, that you could live based on your karma and your past lives and what you chose to master in this life. And that's where, when you understand your genetics, your bloodline, your karma, where you were born, what the situation you were born into, then you can shape your life into the best it can be. And unfortunately, we're a lot of us are sold this lie that says, oh, you should be rich and famous and you have to be a powerful influencer and gain lots of followers. And that's not the life for everybody. Some people, they'll step into the camera and that's home. And they have incredible energies that will attract large followings, and other people don't. And that's not something you can force. You have to have some kind of star power or star destiny to really reach the masses. And that's not something you can buy your way into. That's not something that you can force your way into. That's not something you can will into existence. You can use spells, rituals, ceremonies to enhance what you already have and to build and to become more and more powerful. But certain people have that quality and it's something they're born with. I was on the shuttle going from one city to the next in Arizona. And I remember the driver, I was talking to the driver, and he was telling me about his granddaughter and how she had hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. And she was like 10 years old. So I said, wow, what does she do on social media that attracts hundreds of thousands of followers at 10 years old? And he said, well, she does these funny, like 30-second videos. And one of them is where she's washing her face. The other one is where she's like, just running around the house, like just very ordinary videos. And he showed me one, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's a cute little girl washing her face with bubbles. And I don't even think she was talking in the video. I think she was just washing her face with bubbles and attracting all these people and opportunities to promote products and this, and that. And he said how she had started was that she had a friend who said, oh, I'm going to do this video and I'm going to post it on social media and I'm going to be washing my face and doing this bubble thing. Well, that little girl got less than 200 views. Well, this girl got thousands and thousands of views, thus beginning her social media career. And he said, it's not the way she looks, it's just an ordinary looking young girl, but it's her energy, it's her magnetism. He says some people have it and some don't. And that little girl has whatever it is that attracts people. It's her destiny. It's what she's meant to be doing. She's meant to be influencing and magnetizing her light in a way for the masses. And it's so easy. It's not something that she had to force or will or make people look at her or buy followers. 10 years old, it just happened. And she continued on that path and it continues to bless her. And that's the power of when you activate your gift, whatever it is that you just naturally are born with, that no one really taught you, that no one, forced you, no one made you. You didn't do it because you wanted to make money. You did it because it was natural. I've heard that story so many times as well, where I ask people, well, how did you get into that career? Oh, I really wanted to do filmmaking. I really wanted to be an artist. I really wanted to be a writer. I really wanted to be an engineer. But this paid better. This was more stable. This was something that someone told me I could make a lot of money doing, and I hated it. I still hate it. I'm just drudging through it. I quit. Some people will actually wake up and say, I don't want to be an accountant. I want to be a musician, and we'll go back to school or whatever and get into that field. But some people will just drudge their whole entire life in that field, in that career, and never find satisfaction or joy. They will just simply get through until they retire. And then they're going to go do whatever they want to do. But by that time, you're retired. You're tired because you've been giving your whole entire life force to something you hated. And that's the opposite of coming home. And a lot of times when you go onto the spiritual path, whatever that looks like, and then you activate it into your external life, in your professional life, in your parent, whether you're a mother or father, into your daily life, it takes a lot of risk. It takes a lot of courage, because what you believe and the path you choose may not look like the mainstream. And that's why there's what we call the spiritual awakening happening in society. And it's really not a spiritual awakening so much as a soul awakening. It's your soul re-remembering who you are, and it's coming home, and it's shaking out the elements that are not home, that are mundane, that are crushing your soul. And in crushing of your soul, your spirit cannot rise. So when you come home to your spiritual practice, into your spiritual beingness, what will automatically happen is your soul will attract the people, the things, and the resources needed to pursue that path. And if you think about it, if you're pursuing any, let's say, altar path, anything where you build an altar, and that includes, what we call witchcraft, sorcery, shamanism, paganism, most earth-based spirituality, which is the first spirituality, requires a lot of time, because you have to learn and you have to go places and spaces that are, off the grid sometimes. And there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of tools, actually, because candles, altar items, especially when you get into the higher realms and you're working with those really powerful beings, those items are not cheap, so to say. Those items, we're talking about gold, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and some of these items are very expensive and hard to acquire. Sometimes they're even relics. So it's not a path that you could just walk into and it's free. Like sometimes I have people come to ceremonies and they bring sticks as offerings, or they bring like very cheap things. Or I've even had people send me like dirt in the mail or stuff like that. And it's like, I'm not exactly sure how this, is what we think shamanism is. It's nice. Like sometimes people send me power dirt and I will throw them in the fire, use them in rituals. But ultimately, this path, if you want to work with really powerful beings and you want like profound blessings, you have to give to the spirit world. You have to. You just have to. And I find that those who give the most receive the most. I've seen a lot of mudangs in Korea and how they operate in ceremony. And, there's just a knowing from the people who are receiving the blessings that they're going to give to the spirit world. They're just going to give. They give to every spirit on the altar. They give their whole heart to the spirit world because they know the profound blessings that will pour forward. they are not spiritually stingy. They're not materially stingy. They are wholeheartedly giving. And that gift that comes back is life-changing. And it's because there's an inherent knowing in their soul that these beings are powerful and that they are going to move mountains because they gave with their heart. It's not something that somebody taught them. It's not something that somebody forced them to do. It's something that they inherently know from the depth of their soul. And those are the ones that get the profound blessings. And you'd be surprised at who these people are, because most of those people are the famous people. They're the ones who are moving the country forward. They are the ones bringing cultural change. They are the ones reflecting all of the dysfunctions in society. They're the ones exposing and doing the light work. They are the ones out there in the trenches. They're the ones caring for their families. They're the ones who contribute profoundly to society. And there's no difference between their spiritual walk and their physical walk, because they walk with the power of the spirits, of the spirit world. And people who know the power of the spirit world, they know the power of giving. They know the power of receiving. They know the power of healing. And they know that in the end, all of this will go, including this body, including this spirit. Everything leaves this earth. However, what you leave on this earth is what matters most. The impact you lead with, the beauty you leave people in their hearts, the legacy that you carry forward. So you can work 30, 40, 50 years at a job you hate. That is not a legacy, because the second you're gone, nobody will miss you. You will not miss that job. You will have agonizing memories of that job. And in the end, the legacy that you will have is most likely pain and suffering. However, when you choose to really step onto your path, onto your magic and mystery, onto the path of most resistance and yet least resistance, you find home. When you dare to follow your spiritual path and stop jumping from one lily pad to the next, stop going from teacher to teacher, stop going from video to video, stop trying to be cheap and not invest. When you stop allowing other people to sway you back and forth, and you really sit with your own heart, you will find home. If you stop doubting yourself, stop confusing yourself, stop labeling yourself, you will find home. Because your heart will lead you to the places and spaces and teachers and things that you most need. And it will also push it away. Your ego will push grand blessings out of the way if you're not able to receive them, if you're not able to give. The spirit world knows. There have been so many times on this path where I've taught students and I have said, wow, that student was so powerful. It's too bad their ego got in the way, because we could have opened some incredible doors. The spirit world will say, they're not ready. They're not deserving. They weren't able to see their gifts. And it's too bad, because some of those people could have been so powerful in influence, so powerful in commanding energies, so powerful in social change, so powerful in artistry, all the ways. Because what a spiritual path will do when you're really embodying it is it will just fuel your gift. It will get you through the hard. It will get you through the easy. It will attract the opportunities, and it will change the world. It will take your gift and make it something very useful for the world. But you have to want it. You have to want it. You have to be willing to work for it. You have to be willing to shed your ego. You have to be willing to listen and follow. And you have to be willing to really shine. And what I find for people who have the gift but are really reluctant to sharing the gift is that, unfortunately, there's a very inherent selfish and greedy nature to the egoic structure. Because when you are selfless, you want to share who you are. When you are selfish, you are afraid to share who you are. You hide your light. You make excuses, you complain, you victimize, you blame, you shame, and ultimately you suffer. You want material greatness without the work. You want to become spiritually famous, usually without little to no work. But the ego can become a very powerful entity if not tamed. It can become a very destructive force if not realized. And a lot of people, especially here in America, have profound spiritual gifts. They have profound spiritual ancestry, but they have a lot of trauma, a lot of suffering, a lot of selfishness, because that's the culture we live in. And so it takes a lot more effort and work and selflessness to really come home to a spiritual path in the West. I would say I've traveled all over the world, and America is one of the toughest places to be spiritual. There are places in the world where it's so easy, like so easy. It's in the air. And then when you come to America, it's like, ooh. But there are places in America where you will feel that spirit veil. You will feel that power. I think Sedona is one of those places. I've spent 14 years now in Sedona, now part-time, but I've had some of the most profound moments, both individually as myself and walking other people in and through healing ceremonies and experiencing ceremonies that were mind-blowing. And I would say Sedona has that power, but it's all in how you spend your time there. Because if you go there and you do some, woo-woo thing and it's not the right group, or it's not the right, time, or you just go and you sightsee, take 100 pictures, you can easily miss it. It's not available for everybody. It's not an open door for everybody. In fact, I have known lots of people who spent time in Sedona and got sick, had horrible things happen. It's a vortex, as they say, but it really is about how you enter and what you do there and what you're ready for. And if you're ready to come home, really and truly come home. And that is all about how willing you are to go the distance, to travel the miles, to give of yourself, and to ultimately listen to self and your heart and follow your spirit, knowing that your soul will lead you home. But thank you all for joining me today for this episode. And if you're truly ready to open the door to your own spiritual gifts, your own destiny and path, and to come home to who you truly are, I invite you to check out my offerings, my services. I offer one-on-one spiritual shamanic sessions where we go into the spirit world, we connect, and we see what messages, visions, and gifts come forward. My gifts include mediumship, spiritual counseling, any problem you have with money, love, health, relationships. I also offer ceremonies. I have an incredible treasure chest of things that I have offered and can offer. And beyond my website, if you ask, most likely I can help you with it. And if not, I will tell you. But if you're ready to connect, I invite you to go check out my website and my offerings. I'm on most social media platforms, and I look forward to connecting with you. Until we meet again, many blessings. Aho.